What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Kryptonian saying here, bringing you guys another review for One Piece chapter 1062. And chapter 1062 is a rather big bombshell because we learned the truth about Dr. Vegapunk. Dr. Vegapunk is actually 6 people. So he has satellites. So I guess you could say there's 7 bodies because you got the 6 different bodies and then you got the main body. And it kind of reminds me, I know this is like probably pissing people off, but you know, I started out as a channel that did Naruto and One Piece. So it does remind me a little bit of how Nagato used the 6 pounds of pains and had like the 6 bodies, only Vegapunk is doing something different. So he has the satellites, and it isn't because he's trying to, you know, bring about a different form of peace like how you had with Pain, using the 6 pounds of pain to try and get peace through force. This is done because he's like, I got so much work that I need all the help I can get. And to a certain extent, I can understand Vegapunk right here, because one thing I can say for me, just having 3 monetized YouTube accounts, is it gets really hard to juggle everything. Like trying to edit as much as I do edit and trying to run 3 separate channels. Even with like the amount of editors I have, it becomes a real issue trying to manage everything, trying to write and script and record everything on my own. Even if I'm not doing all the editing, it's only so many hours in a day. So I can understand like the need for extra bodies. So I do like this idea right that Vegapunk had. I thought that this might even be like a reflection of Oda because of how involved Oda actually is. Like I know Oda has assistants, but you guys have told me like Oda does most of the work himself, even though he's got a staff assisting him. So I thought that that was probably something where Oda's like, hey, like I'll make like a little meta joke at this point. So the chapter opens up where you have Frankie fanboying out. He's like, oh my God, you're Dr. Vegapunk. I stayed at one of your islands. I learned so much stuff. I can't wait to pick your brain. And Nico Robin's like, wait a minute. How is Dr. Vegapunk a woman? I've never heard anything like that. And just given how long Vegapunk has been around, she looks way too young. And you just see how this Dr. Vegapunk that is talking, Stella, Vegapunk number 2, she starts basically talking, saying like, hey, my research budget is constantly being stretched. I want you to hand over all your valuables. She's basically pulling a Nami at this point, which this might explain why I looked at it and all of a sudden I started simping. Because, you know, like Nami, one of the ones where I say, baby, rob me blind. So it's like Vegapunk and Nami, like, or Vegapunk number 2, they got some similar vibes right here. I give over all my money to them bitches, man. God damn. But yo, backing things up though, because again, I get on the horny vibe. So you get the introduction of the Sea Beast weapons, and we find out that Vegapunk number 2 has been using the Sea Beast weapons in order to prevent any ships from getting there. And as she begins start plotting and she's doing all of her trash talk, you have the Stella Vegapunk, or you have the Shaka Vegapunk that is talking, saying like, look, you might want to chill out. Look at how they're positioned. You've fallen for the trick with all the talkative jokesters. So with Sanji being a simp, and with Frankie being a fanboy, Usopp and Nami being overly scared, when you just sit down and you look at it, Zoro has been hanging back. Zoro's ready to attack. Zoro clearly can attack from that range. Nico Robin, it's the same thing. And once she gets that pointed out to her, she's like, oh my God, I think I did make a mistake. And I like that you see that you basically have Zoro and Robin. They were the ones who didn't fall for the distraction, what you see. They immediately saw it and they immediately went on guard. Zoro, it makes sense because Zoro is super serious. He's very calculated. He gets lost, no sense of direction, but he's second best for a reason. And then with Nico Robin, it's because Nico Robin is a survivor. She's been on the run for so long, so she's not going to have her guard lower in the presence of something like this. So I thought that this was a very, very good characterization for Nico Robin here. And Zoro basically says like, hey, like we got our own demands, Dr. Vegapunk. You need to listen to us. You need to hear us out. And Lilith gets the command to basically bring them back so that he can speak to them because he's got interest. And we shift over, and that's where we get more of the wacky stuff where Luffy and Bonney they're talking as they're walking through this hideout, and we find out more of why Bonney actually came here. So she grew up on this island. However, she ran away, and she's coming back because Dr. Vegapunk turned her father into a cyborg. And we find out that her father is Kuma, which, wow, she definitely took after her mama. That's all I'm gonna say. She definitely took after her mama. If I'm reading this right, and like Kuma is her father, ooh, she better be glad she took her mother's genes. Like, damn, like, when her mama was pregnant and her mama was about to give birth, she's like, please look like me, please look like me, please look like me. Like, god damn. I mean, no shade at Kuma, man, but damn, that's all I'm gonna say on that one. But I thought it was nice to get a little bit of extra characterization for Bonney here to make her more of a relatable character. And that is one thing I do like about One Piece, is that, with certain characters, when you first get introduced to them, you're like, okay, cool design. But as more time goes on, you find a few reasons to actually root for them. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean like every character has to be sympathetic, but if you're going to do it, make sure it's something that the reader can actually latch on to. And I thought that was a nice aspect of what Oda's done here. And we run into this room where you got all these holograms. They look so real. And Luffy's lunging forward. He's like, oh, I'm going to ride the sea monster. And then we find out it's a hologram projection. And Luffy's dumbass thinks like, man, hold on a second. Did we die? Did we turn into ghosts? And you got Jimby like, oh my God, no, dude, we didn't turn into ghosts. This is clearly something going on. And when Luffy finds out that it's a hologram projection, Luffy's super pissed off because like Luffy sees the food and he's like, why is this food real? And that's where we have another Vegapunk show up, and Luffy's like, oh, this is a projection as well, huh? And that's when that Vegapunk just decks Luffy, sends him flying, but then she turns around and they have all this food, and Luffy and Bonney, they're eating the food, they're completely pigging out. And she's like, yeah, I'm glad you guys like my cooking machine. And then she starts explaining how it works. And then she resizes down into her regular form. And she's like, hey, I'm Dr. Vegapunk. And when she says this, that's when Bonnie's like, what the hell is she talking about? That ain't Dr. Vegapunk. And if you go back to what she said when she's talking about it, she specifically says he. So that's a nice segue to what you see with Rob Lucci and with the members of CP0, because they're talking, they're like, hey, Dr. Vegapunk has his main body, but he has 6 satellites, and they're basically meant to do experiments and basically meant to make his workload easier. However, we're supposed to get this brat to Egghead, and we're supposed to eliminate all the Vegapunks. So it does look like the world government's basically made him expendable. So this is interesting because Rob Lucci's like, what's going on here? And Rob Lucci is told like, hey, you really need to actually quit asking for questions because you're seeking out answers to stuff that you don't need to know the answer to. So it does look like at some point, and I might be reading too much into this, but it does look like CP0 at some point, Kaku, Lucci, Stussy at some point, they're going to get betrayed by the world government. I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when, because if they're already going after Dr. Vegapunk, then you can tell that they're expendable as well. And that's actually my chapter question. Do you guys think that CP0 is going to be expendable at some point? And then the other thing, why do you think the world government wants the 6 Vegapunk satellites taken care of? What caused them to get to this point?